and Enoch. Now the biggest reasons are very simple. First one, because when you read in the book of Revelation, chapter 11, where it is, and then compare that to something from Zechariah, the book of Zechariah, you would immediately notice what he says. In Zechariah chapter 4, you look at verse 11, says, Then answered I and said unto him, What are these? Or what are these two olive trees upon the right side of the candlestick and upon the left side thereof? And I answered again and said unto him, What be these two olive branches which through the two golden pipes empty the golden oil out of themselves? And he answered me and said, Knowest thou not what these be? And I said, No, my Lord. Then said he, These are the two anointed ones that stand, not shall stand, that stand by the Lord of the whole earth. Now, what this seems to suggest clearly is that the prophet saw this vision of these two anointed ones in heaven. So the idea is that these two people are already in heaven. Okay? They're already in heaven. But when you understand prophetic revelation, that's not enough to say so. That's not enough, because you can see the future. Like we read in the book of Revelation, there are things that were put in the past tense that have not happened yet. For example, he saw a great multitude of saints. They are not there yet. And he saw them in heaven. But that's a revelation, that's a vision. But for those who say that Zechariah already saw them, and so they were there, now that's the reason. They say because he says he saw these two. All right? Now, in Revelation chapter 11, when you go to verse 4, you'd see he refers to them. These are the two olive trees and the two candlesticks standing before the God of the earth. So clearly, this seems to be what Zechariah was talking about. But when you use these two to determine who those two olive trees are, those two anointed ones, several things. They have to be prophets, because it says they're prophets. They're anointed ones. When you read their ministry in the book of Revelation, definitely the prophets. And then, it means if they were already in heaven, so many years before Jesus came, that would suggest it can be any of the candidates from after Jesus came. So they pick Elijah and Enoch. Why Enoch? Because promised someone must die before going to heaven. So that's not a good to die and after that the judgment. No, that's not a promise. And the word doesn't say because it is, as though it is a promise. No, you read the whole context. I've had a teaching on that section before. So God's not saying that everyone must die. Otherwise, it nullifies what Jesus came to do. And in fact, if you read in Hebrews chapter 11, when you read the 5th verse, what does it say? By faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death, and was not found because God had translated him. For before his translation he had this testimony that he pleased God. And what the word tells us, you read this, Father, and you read also from Genesis where this story was picked, you'd see that God said he would not taste of death. He was translated that he should not see death. That he should not. So why must he come back to see it? Doesn't make sense. So the reasons given for speculating that the two witnesses should be Elijah and Enoch don't hold any water, frankly. Then there's another one. If you go to the book of Malachi, you read what the prophet said in the 4th chapter. He did say that Elijah would come, that he would turn the hearts of the fathers to the children to the fathers. Yeah. But something interesting happened with Jesus. The Jews came to him. They said, his disciples actually, didn't the scriptures say that Elijah would come before the Messiah? You, Elijah? He said no. So some picked that to say, if he were Elijah, he should know. I don't think so. He was not the one that prophesied it. He didn't have to know. He wasn't God. I tell you, this is Elijah. That's another way of telling you, he fulfilled it. He fulfilled what that prophecy was. So, I'm saying that there's not enough room to speculate that those two witnesses must be Elijah and Enoch. You don't have enough grounds. So anyone picking on those two is at best speculating. Not because they're definitely so. So as I've just shared with you, there are just as many scriptures to say no as you may have to say yes. The second question was from same chapter really, in Revelation chapter 11. The writer was asking a question about verse 13. And the same hour was there a great earthquake, and the 10th part of the city fell, and in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000, and the remnant were affrighted and gave glory to the God of heaven. And he says, who were those that were affrighted and gave glory to the God of heaven? And of course we said, certainly those who remained. And then I said, that didn't mean that they were converted. Okay, people can give glory to God, not necessarily because they love him. But just for your personal study, and to be more specific, there are a couple of things to see there. I will read the verse. And the same hour was there a great earthquake, and the 10th part of the city fell. And in the earthquake was slain of men 7,000. So the first thing we want to know is, which city? Because it didn't say the whole world fell. It says the 10th part of the city, not the 10th part of the world, of the city. So, one of the things I wanted you to notice yesterday, I asked you to read it from the Amplified Version. I wanted you to notice something. And at that very hour, there was a tremendous earthquake, and 1/10 of the city was destroyed, fell. 7,000 people perished in the earthquake, and those who remained were filled with dread and terror, and were awestruck, and they glorified the God of heaven. Those who remained. So, generally, there were people watching. The whole world saw them when these two witnesses died. But then, if you use the term that's used in the King James Version, the remnant, it will draw your attention to something. It will draw your attention. During the teaching on the book of Revelation, that when you come across this word remnant, it's always important to see in what context. Because often it is used with Israel, not the church.